Hello, my name is Rami Ranger and welcome to the program Gems of Asia. आज हमारे पास हैं ऐसे गेस्ट जिनको तो मैं कहूँगा सबसे बड़े जेम मिलते हैं अपने लॉर्ड को, लॉर्ड ढोलकिया. वेलकम टू द प्रोग्राम.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. आज we had to come to House of Lord in a nice studio because we know you're a very busy person and you cannot come to the studio. So thank you for giving us time. आज हम आपसे पूछना चाहते हैं आपकी कहानी, आपकी ज़ुबानी. We like to see what is behind Lord Dholkia और क्या क्या चीज़ें छुपी पड़ी जो किसी को पता नहीं. Starting with your early life, कहाँ शुरू की, कैसे शुरू हुई, बताइए.
See, my earliest recollection is that I was born in East Africa, and the earliest recollection is in a place called Moshi, where the Mount Kilimanjaro is. And I remember very closely going to school, primary school, in the sort of small kindergarten that used to be there. And that's just a very hazy memory. But the most exciting memory was that every morning that I got up, there was the Mount Kilimanjaro at the back of it. And there was this magnificent picture at the back of my mind of the coolness of the mount itself, but more important, the sheer majesty. And when I look at that, I kept asking myself again and again to this day, that majesty of the nature, how do we convert that in terms of the majesty of human being in relation to what they can do, what the messages they could pass. So that has filtered through that particular childhood.
But you have, I think that loftiness has already come in you, that majestic, look, the room, the mountain, you have become a mountain of a man yourself. That inspiration is there from the Mount Kilimanjaro. So where did you start your studies? I mean,
initially it was Moshi. But my father was in railways, and that effectively meant that we traveled from station to station. So one year I would be in Moshi, next year my father would be transferred to Arusha, then he would be moved to Tabora, so that we had this what we call the transit life, moving in different places. It didn't matter, because at the end of the day, what was exciting is that every year you meet different group of people. More the people you meet, the more exciting your life becomes, because it's the people who react with you that brings the excitement in life. It's not simply that you learn about things, because remember, there were no libraries there was no radio, there was no television. In fact, in many places I lived in Africa, there was not even the electric light. So all the time you were building your life around the colleagues who actually who gave you that particular information.
And you become a man of the people by meeting so many people, and that quality has continued till today. But how did you move to UK?
What happened was that my father, being a station master, there was no secondary education in some of the places we were. So he sent us to India, where we have a home in Gujarat, and we studied there for about 3 or 4 years. I did my intermediate science in Gujarat, and then I was very ill, and my father invited me back to Africa, and I said, I'll come on condition that you will allow me to do further studies abroad somewhere. So I went back to East Africa. I was about 16, and I joined the Standard Bank of South Africa at that time, which was in Dar es Salaam. Worked for 1 year, collected enough money, and I said to my father, I'm going to UK, I'm going to United Kingdom. And they were all very amazed, because remember, I'm talking of 1956. I had no idea about England at all. I wrote to the British Council, and I got admission at Brighton Technical College. I caught the first available ship. After 30 days, I landed myself in Tilbury Docks in London.
Fantastic. You tell me, Brighton, there must be very few Asian in that part of the world when you arrived. So how did you adjust yourself with people, completely stranger?
Yes, we had a lot of difficulty. I had personally a lot of difficulty, because I was one of the very, very few person living in Brighton in a predominantly white society. But the most interesting thing was the idea at the back of my mind that it's not simply the study that I want to do, but more importantly, to be able to grasp what's happening in the community. So I had two types of attack in front of me. One is to do my studies all the time, but at the same time, actively participate in what was going on. And I remember one instance, because I'm sure you're going to ask me a question, why a liberal? In 1956, I used to share my digs with one of the white guys, and he said to me, why don't we go and have a drink at one of the pubs? And remember, I had never been to a pub in my life before. And I said, where shall I meet you? He said, meet me at the Montpelier Club in Brighton. at 7 o'clock in the evening. I said, okay. I went along to this place, which is a basement place on the seafront in Brighton, very dingy little place. And I stood there and I couldn't find my friend. And there was this barman, myself, and a group of 3 or 4 young people sitting in a corner chatting about something. I didn't know what they were talking about. And after about 10 or 15 minutes being panicky, suddenly one of the young guys from that group walked towards me and said, "Excuse me," he said, "we are the young liberals." So I said, "What's your problem?" And he said, "Oh, we can't get on with our meeting because we haven't got a quorum." So I just looked at him and I said, "What is a quorum?" He said, "We need 5 people to get on with our meeting." So I said, "What do I have to do?" He said, "Well, you have to pay a subscription." I said, "How much?" He said, "half a crown, that's 2 shillings and 6 pence. So I paid my 2 shillings 6 pence and I became a liberal. So there is no question of my father knowing Lloyd George, no question of my having any liberal background at all. It was simply a question, accidental, joining the Liberal Party, and then my political career began.
What a great gain for the Liberal Party, and I will tell my Conservative colleague to start recruiting in pubs. When you joined the Liberal Party, did you ever imagine that one day you will be the president of the same party where you just happened to join by accident?
Well, let me put it this way. If you believe in liberal principles, which I did, because remember, being one of the few liberal at that time in the country, I had the role model of Joe Grimond, who was the leader of the Liberal Party. There were only 6 members of parliament at that time. So I said to my colleagues, I said, "Why are we in politics for? We are in politics because we want to achieve changes." And I don't think many people remember. I fought a council election in Brighton, and I was the first ever elected councillor in predominantly white Brighton after Krishna Menon, because Krishna Menon was a councillor in St. Pancras before me. And I think a lot of people talk about being the first here, first there, but I can go as far back as 1956-57,
Right.
having put myself in politics. The second thing is, which is very important, if you believe in principle, you're not going for political expediency of saying, where am I going to get in 20 years' time? It's the principle that I'm after. Do you believe in the community? Do you believe in the elimination of poverty? Do you believe in about liberty, dignity, respect of people? And if you believe on the principles, you continue to push that particular angle all the time. And remember, in Brighton, I was fighting for the rights of white people. And they had confidence in me to be able to elect me on the Brighton Council. And being the only liberal on the Brighton Council out of 76 councillors, I had a unique position. I was the leader of the Liberals on Brighton Council, I was the chief whip, I was literally speaking on almost every aspect of subject, and that was my training that brought me where I am.
Well, ever since you became president of the Liberal Party has gone from strength to strength.
Yes.
And that is a reflection on your personality and your stature. No, I won't say within the Asian community, across all communities. That is pride and joy for all of us, and we are grateful that our community has produced heroes like you. But what kind of society would you like to see in Britain, that we should enjoy in Britain?
I think that is where my own upbringing designs my particular future. It is very much creating a caring society, that we care for other people, that we respect other people for their beliefs, their religion. More importantly, it is that we care about people who are less fortunate than we are. We care about the elimination of poverty. We care about people's right to be able to have education, to have employment, to be able to marry who they wish to, and to be able to create a society within which they are at ease with themselves. But more important than that, if you take that concept slightly forward, I also want us to be responsible for creating an environment within which our children can grow in a healthy society. Do you follow? So we have a tremendous responsibility. And if you bear those principles in mind, any policy which does not contain those elements are the policies that you can object to and say it doesn't fit with my mental picture, and you want to change that. And that is what I've been doing in the Parliament, continuously objecting to issues that affect other people's rights, liberties, dignity, and respect.
Very. Lord Dholkia, you got married to a lovely lady, Anne. We want to know how you met Anne, and was it love at first sight?
Well, no. Strangely, when you are young, you're going out with a lot of people around you. And you go out because you need a company, you sort of appreciate other people's ideas and all those issues. But when I was a councillor in Brighton, the mayor of Brighton invited me to the mayor's ball. And on that particular day, I didn't have a partner. And I was working in a hospital laboratory at that time as a student. And I saw this beautiful nurse walking towards me, sister in the hospital. So I looked at her and I said, would you like to come to the ball with me? So she gave me a dirtiest possible look because I'd never spoken to her before. And she said, I'll have to think about it. This is a sister in the same hospital where I was working. 3 days later, she said, yes, I would like to come to the ball with you. And that is why, because it was hospital, when she agreed that she'll come with me, I said that we met on medical grounds.
Medical grounds. And they call marriages are made in heaven. Now you're married with, happily married, and you have lovely children, and they've all done very well in education. Tell us about your 2 daughters you have.
I've got 2 daughters. Yes. Anjali is the elder daughter. What's very interesting about them, that both of them came to any meetings that I went along when I was young, to political meetings, etc. And they immediately lost the fear of crowd, and so they became very, very prominent in school life. Anjali did a degree, MA in politics, and a second degree in law. And then she was snapped up by a number of merchant bankers, and she's married to a Scottish lawyer. And can I just give you an example which fascinates you? The Scottish guy, who is a lawyer, Scotsman, was so keen on my daughter, he said he wanted to marry my daughter. He came to see me with my daughter. And I said, we have a custom that you have to come on a bended knee and ask for my daughter's hand. So the Scotsman actually bent down and said, may I have your daughter's hand? And I had this broad smile on my face. And he said, why are you smiling? I said, well, you people ruled India for 250 years. This is the first time I have a white man bending on his knees asking for my daughter's hand. That was so wonderful. And I said, you can have a sort of, and that's how they got married. And they have 2 children. Elder boy, my grandson, is Gabriel. And the second one, I said to her, when the second daughter was born very recently, I said, what name have you given her? And I was flabbergasted. Her name is India Jane.
Very
wonderful.
Very
the second daughter studied to be a doctor. She qualified as a doctor. She married an Englishman who is a doctor. They're both in Barbados, and he's now a diabetic consultant, setting up a diabetic service for the government of Barbados.
Fantastic. I believe your son-in-law walked with a Indian flag to North Pole?
Correct. He was the one who was very interested in this particular charity, which is designed to educate children of widowed mothers in India. There are 35 million widows in India, and when you think 35 million, each have 2 or 3 children, we're talking massive number of children who have not a hope in hell chance of making a future. So we collect money in this country in terms of education, and we provide for a period of 6 years sufficient money for them to be able to get at least basic education. And we have a holistic approach. So the family is helped. You can't have a hungry child going for education. You have to provide for other things. And my son-in-law actually saw what we were doing. And he was so keen that he said that, okay, he would walk to the North Pole from the Resolute Bay in Canada, a distance of 500 miles, and plant an Indian flag on the magnetic North Pole. And I said, I'm sure you're not going to do that. But I kept a track on him, a satellite track on him.
Yes.
And to my surprise, he traveled 500 miles, put the Indian flag. But can I just give you a secret? He didn't know which side of Indian flag was up. So he put the green up and the orange down. And then when the photograph came, I said, that's a big mistake. Well, he couldn't go back to the North Pole, but we used the computer wizardry and changed the color the other way around.
Very good. But he had aerial view online. I've gone through the organization you represent. It's an array of very versatile, very diverse organization you represent. And you lend your name to worthy causes. And how do you find so much time, to give so much to the community?
I always say to people that I have a position and I can ask questions, I can do things in Parliament which reflects the perception of our community, reality of what's happening to them. What I am is very much a catalyst. I get into an organization, share the ideas with them, push them into doing certain things, make sure that things move. I'm very impatient. I don't like people chatting for the sake of chatting. I don't go to meetings, sit down with people and talk or play cards. That's not my style. I said to you, 1 hour, let's sit down, what we can do. And this is the way I move things forward. And there are so many organizations who could benefit by sort of exchanging views, etc. And I've done the same thing. Only yesterday at about 3 o'clock, I was meeting the Holocaust Education Trust, within which we were looking as to how do we promote this further work so that other communities actually understand what Holocaust was about. At 5 o'clock, I was meeting Hindu youth in this particular place here, talking to them about issues, how they should take things forward. And I think, to my mind, is the little bit of push that you can give. Be a catalyst, don't be a talker all the time. Give them the scope within which they can move forward, and then sit back and see what's going on. And I've done that.
You have become our role model, and we get a lot of inspiration from your work and from yourself. How do you see yourself?
I see myself as somebody to whom his community is very important. To me, it's not what I am, but people around me that has made me what I am. I have people coming and working in my office. People bring different expertise to me. People question me about different things. That is the most exciting part of my life. And I always say, the day I forget my community, the day I forget which country I come from, the day I start hating other religion or something like that, I won't be a person worth knowing. So my approach always has been, continue on those basic principles that I talked about. Respect, dignity, fairness, justice, equality for all mankind. Work on that basis, and there is nothing that will separate you from other people.
We have a lot of other lords in our community, but they're very remote from their people. You are the only lord we call our own lord. You're accessible. We never feel intimidated in your presence. The power has now gone to your head. What is the secret of that? You know, why you are so, if I can use the word humble, what is that made you that way?
Well, let me put it this way. The real Lord is one up there, whom we pray and whom we worship. Sometimes some of the lords think that they've moved to such a high plane that ordinary people don't matter. To me, that's the biggest mistake people make.
I agree.
To me, ordinary people do matter. To me, the dignity of people is important. To me, being with people is important. So I don't care. Wherever I'm invited, to the smallest meeting, to the largest meeting, I will go there. I will sit with them. I will eat with them. You know, that is part of our culture. Knowledge doesn't come in by reading books alone. It comes in when you share things with other people, when you have your prayers with other people, when you play football or whatever sports it is with other people. That brings so many different things to your life. And my life is enriched, not because of what I have done, but what you people have done to me, and I'm grateful for that. And as far as I'm concerned, when I go from this soil, I just want people to remember that every one of us can rise to that particular height, because there is nothing that should stop us, provided our principles are very clear from day one.
Is very good. Is religion important to you?
Religion is very important, but at the same time the tolerance within that religion is very important. My religion does not tell me to hate other religions. My religion does not tell me that I'm better than other people. Do you follow? My religion is sufficiently powerful enough for me not to be afraid of other religion. I want other people to actually enhance my particular knowledge by telling me about what they stand for. And together, I think, that brings to me something very precious, not only my values, but the values of other people, as to how each one of us are striving for better understanding based on our religious and cultural belief. And to me, that makes a very healthy society.
How much role Lady Anne has played in you being what you are?
Well, she is more Indian than I am, because at the end of the day, cultures, beliefs, religious values are more translated and more transferred from women to the children rather than men. A man will put his jacket on, his anorak or his overcoat, and off he goes like a stereotype Englishman. And women in our community are the one who preserve our culture. Now, Anne is a Scottish woman, and you know, you might surprise you, she has been to India more times than I have been. When my mother was ill in India, she said she was going to go and see my mother in India, and she stayed with her for over 2 months. And remember, my mother could not read or write, and Anne could not speak my language. To see two people communicating in sign language and passing their time together was the greatest joy. So she has taken up some of our values very clearly, and anybody who comes in my house will find very much the values that we propagate across, and that is what I believe, sir.
And is a great lady. आजकल तो अपने culture की औरतें भी कहती हैं mother-in-law से दूर रहो. And I think and should be the next for me to interview on that special subject. Now we're coming to the final part of our program, where I need to ask you some real personal question.
Yes.
So our audience or viewers can see.
Yes.
A little bit more about your son. What is your star sign?
Pisces.
You're a Pisces.
Yes.
Your favorite food?
My favorite food is something which is very, very light. Aubergine with a touch of spices and little bit of what we commonly call in Gujarati khichdi.
Khichdi.
If you give me khichdi and give me aubergine, there is nothing in the world would tempt me to move away from that dish.
Your favorite politician?
My favorite politician has always been Ian MacLeod, the conservative politician, who was the colonial secretary during the time of the Harold Macmillan administration. Unfortunately, he died very young. But if there was a politician of caliber, of intelligence, who could make speeches and who can convince people, he was the one, when East Africa was being Africanized, he was the one who said to everybody, we intend to give our right to Asians in East Africa, and we intend to honor that particular right when they come to England. And I think that has been the Conservative Party's acceptable face, and I admire that particular character. It's a shame that he died so young. He could have been the leader of the Tory party in this country.
Your favorite actor?
Unfortunately, I have very little chance to see any films at all. But in the old days, I used to love this sort of Dilip Kumar in India. And I used to sort of just love, because remember those were black and white films. I mean, if you ask me what was the last film I saw, it was probably Bridge on River Kwai about 30 years ago. So I don't get much of a chance to see film. See, to me, I cannot find 2.5 hours in my life to be able to sit. You can ask anybody.
With the amount of organization you represent,
yes.
If you get 10 minutes, there'll be a bonus.
Yes.
Your favorite sports personality?
In terms of sports, I think one of the one I've admired is Gavaskar.
Gavaskar, striker.
I think he's just been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And against him, I have another one in Pakistan called Imran. And I think if you looked at his all-roundership in what he did, these two people projects, I mean, such a remarkable way, the gentleness about the cricket, the beauty about cricket, but more important than that, how those two countries with a magic game like cricket can unite Hindus and Muslims in understanding that there are better things to do than fight with each other.
Your favorite holiday spot?
My favorite holiday spot is my garden, my back garden, which is a very long garden with a little bit of woods and a river at the back. And if you see me going in there, every time I have a break, I put my shorts on, I take my shirt and put a t-shirt on, I have this spade and a shovel in my hand, I have a lawnmower going around, I have a little pond at the back, and you see me walking in Sussex in the countryside, and nobody would ever dream that I'm a member of the House of Lords.
Finally, I would like to ask you a message for your community.
The message is very simple. I believe that we live in this country and we got to be part of that country. To be part of that particular country, it's not a question of what we take for ourselves, but what we give. And the giving must be more than what we take. When we start giving things, it's important to remember that there are so many people who are less fortunate than we are. A society will be much more bearable, much more easy to live with, if all of us share not only the joys that we have, but also the sadness of other people. And I believe every one of us have a right to make that contribution, and I have a lot of faith in our young people, and I can see many, many Lord Dholkias in future years to come.
Lord Dholkia, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure.
ये थे Lord Dholkia, जिनको आपने सुना, देखा, an inspiration to us all, a truly remarkable personality. And अब next week आपकी सेवा में एक और जम को लेके आएंगे